Hey everybody, just doing a little bit of a showcase and update on what's on the table. So I have been putting up and priming and getting my first base paint on my French Marines. So I've got my white and my sort of using beige for the sort of not gaiters, but the leggings, I believe, on them. And I'll talk about those in a second. I'm going to go into a little more detail on my paint scheme that I'm going to be using. But while I've been doing those steps, it's been easy for me to just sort of work a bit on my Spider-Man, who I've now finished. And so I'm pretty happy with the way he's come out. Now, he's not as brightly colored as some of my other comic miniatures, although I think the blue is kind of a nice bright blue that I've used. But what I ended up doing, because of the intricate nature of the webbing that is in the model, and just trying to paint that individually with, let's say, the acrylic inks, and then going in for each square and brightening each one, and the amount of mess involved with that, I actually decided to go back to a older technique. And actually, I think, like, in some places you'll see, like, it's come out pretty nicely in the way that it's captured the webbing, is I used an oil wash. And the benefit with that is that it cleans up really nice. Like, you can go in and use a Q-tip and wipe off once it's dry with a little bit of solvent dampening the Q-tip. You can go in and wipe off the raised areas, and it creates they can be quite rich in the level of detail, I think, that it makes. And so I think it's captured the webbing pretty nicely. Yeah, and then I used initially I started out with some fairly muted tones for blues, like I would, not muted, but just typical tones that I use for my French and the French Indian War, and lightened them up, you know, for their blue uniforms. But I decided in the end, I was looking for something like this in the end, something a bit brighter than that, more vibrant, I guess. And what I settled on is a high elf blue from Coat d'Arms to give myself a nice, something that's going to pop on the table. And so I kind of went over what I was doing with that, and then I ended up using the acrylic ink again on the blue just to create some definition in some areas. I didn't go crazy, but I did actually do some black lining in certain spots, just to create that definition in certain spots. And so in the end, I'm pleased with the way it's come out. I've debated whether I should make them a bit brighter on the red, but in the end, I am happy with it. So yeah, I think he'll look great on the table, without a doubt, to me. Yeah, and so that's another Marvel miniature done. Now, I do have my French that I'm working on. I just was working on their leggings. I noticed when looking, I've looked closely at these in the past, but I noticed when looking closely at them and researching the French Marines, you know, they initially were issued white leggings over their blue sort of pants, you know, that would be underneath it, and their blue waistcoat. as they settled into the French frontier, they would have used more Indian moccasins and First Nation leggings and things like that. And if you look, there's a fringe on the edge of these, and so I've interpreted that as they are actually, if you look close, they are moccasins, and then like they have the fringe on there. So I'm interpreting that as using the sort of local leggings and materials that they did. And so I'm gonna they do have their overcoat though. Many of them did abandon it, and they're in the hotter months for sure with their just to have their blue waistcoat. But I'm going to paint them with their overcoats on because they do have them on. And I'm going to go for a cap that's sort of blue in the front and then a white top. I've seen them all one color. I've seen them as just sort of blue and then the white. I kind of like that for the variety. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm going for. More of those sort of local leggings, and then just sort of a blue with the white. Standard is blue cuffs, on their white overcoat, and yeah, looks like they also have their sort of axes, and many of them, like from what I read, they would have abandoned swords for axes when out in the wilderness. It would have been more useful for them. So these seem to be a bit more experienced Marines, as compared to ones that maybe just got off the boat, from France and have all their standard issue. And so, yeah, looking forward to painting these up. And that's kind of what I'm up to. Hope everybody's doing well, and talk to you later.